you are better than no one. So make sure you are humble enough in your growth, but also remember that no one is better than you. Each of us have been given a gift, and you need to use it in the environment that you're in with the support of others.
Hello and welcome to the Ndini podcast. I'm Sandra Chuma. Every week, I'm bringing you conversations with bold, inspiring, trailblazing, and influential women of African descent. These are women from all walks of life, women who are entrepreneurs, artists, social activists, athletes. Each one of them, in their own way, is changing the narrative on what it means to be an African woman. They'll be telling us about their journeys and sharing their secrets to success. And I hope that by hearing their inspiring stories, you will be inspired.
Hello.
Delphine, hello.
How are you? I don't know. Are we doing audio or...
We're doing audio. I'm sorry if you dressed up and you're wearing your beautiful red lipstick today, but we're doing audio.
So all my dressing up is for nothing.
Next time. Now, I told your people that this one is an audio-only interview, but I am going to come to South Africa someday in the very near future and will arrange to do an on-camera sit-down because I know you wear some beautiful, beautiful outfits.
Oh, I try.
Yes. Why don't we start with that? Because I know that you're very much about wearing African brands. You buy your fabrics. Tell me about that and what inspired that.
You know, I'm from Burkina Faso, right?
Yes, I know you're from Burkina Faso.
And I've lived in North America for a good 20 years of my life. And when I came back, and we wear a lot of African prints in West Africa in general. So I started here with one of my designers. She's from Nigeria, actually. And I started with her with one or two outfits about 6 years ago when I got here. And then she started doing African print. She could do my suit. She could do pretty much everything that I did. So I said, okay, this is how I'm going to dress going forward. There's so much support that we can provide to these women. And I don't like to do the high branded designer African print. I use this lady, she does it out of her house. I have another one that I use quite a bit in Senegal as well. There's another one that lives next door to my dad in Ouagadougou. So I tend to buy the print. I tend to buy the print a lot in Côte d'Ivoire and in Ghana. So I'm a Vlisco girl. Vlisco, I'm a wooden and I'm a uniwax person. So I love
that. I'm a Vlisco girl.
So I tend to do a lot of the shopping when I'm in West Africa. And then when I come here, she either does it or I do it from somewhere else. So we design the outfits together because our African bodies are quite particular, right? So that's also what prompted me having my own clothes done because she can fit the print and the design to the body. So that's how that started.
So let's start off, if we can, Delphine, by you introducing yourself and telling me who you are and what it is you do.
So I'm Delphine Traoré Maïdou. I am from Burkina Faso. I'm a mother of two beautiful children that get on my nerves quite a bit. They are 15 and 12, a boy who's 15 and the girl is 12. I'm firstborn of 4 kids. My younger sister, the one after me, actually, she's a movie producer. She's on set right now in Ivory Coast, filming her next movie. Then I have a brother who's a computer nerd. He's based in Senegal. And then my youngest sister, Valerie, she does a lot of advocacy work. So she has a campaign agency based in Senegal. And what do I do? So I've been with Allianz for about 13 years now. And currently the key part of my role, because the insurance part is quite interesting. Yes, it's how we make money and that's the company that we are. But I think my role within the company personally is to promote young leaders. And Allianz gives me the platform and the resources to do that, which is why I enjoy working with the company.
So we'll come back to your role at Allianz, but I want to start off by, you talked about you're from Burkina Faso. Tell me what it was like, your childhood in Burkina Faso and growing up with your 3 siblings.
He was. So my dad was a UN diplomat, but he took over that role when I was about 10. Before that, he was a regular, how do we call it, fonctionnaire, working for the government in Burkina Faso. So life there was simple. Mom was working, dad was working. We spent the holidays in the village. Usually we would spend 2-3 months at my grandparents' farm in Orodaha, which is west side of Burkina Faso. And the rest of the time, it was just a regular childhood, right? Things changed really when my dad got this big promotion and joined the United Nations. And then from then on, we started traveling the African continent quite a bit because he would be in one country for 2-3 years and then move to another country and to another country. So that's kind of how we grew up.
Now, that must have been challenging, I imagine, especially in the teenage years when you're moving from country to country. What was the greatest lesson that you learned from having to adapt to different countries every so often?
The greatest lesson, and I think it's a lesson that's helping me right now, is that I'm able to adapt to any environment, to any culture, to any type of person around me, whether it's some very, as people call, some very important people, or whether it's the lady that is cleaning my shoes. The biggest lesson is being able to adapt to cultures, to environment, to people, and also the empathy that it brings, right? Because you are able to see beyond the person that you see in front of you. Everybody has a story. And before we can judge, admire somebody, we also need to understand the story that they come from. And I've always been, since then, quite interested in the person behind the face that I see, right?
Now, if we go back to your travels and moving to different countries, at some point when it was time for you to go to university, you went to Pittsburgh. And what was striking about your move to Pittsburgh was you arrived in Pittsburgh not speaking a word of English.
Yes. My choice was not Pittsburgh, by the way. The first thing that I wanted to do, I wanted to be a translator, a professional translator. So the plan for me at the time was to go to Belgium, go to a professional translation school there. And then my dad says, maybe rather than go there, why don't you go and perfect your English first? And then once you go there, at least you have French and English, and then you can decide if you still want to do this translation type work. Later on, I found out that one of the reasons why he was not so much for this role was that he felt like as a woman, I would be traveling way too much, and it would be difficult to create this sweet little family that he had in mind for his daughter, right? So he sent me to the US. He said, do school, learn to speak English. And then after that, he says, well, why don't you start taking some accounting classes and see how it goes, right? So he never pushed me into doing anything. He would just give advice. So I started the accounting classes, and after a year in the US, then it becomes quite difficult to move elsewhere. So that's how I ended up there. But the key for me was to go to Miami or some fun city like that. But he felt that Pittsburgh was the capital city of studying. There was a lot of university there. So he's like, you can't get into so much trouble when you're in a city like Pittsburgh. In Miami would be a different story. So I applied to different schools, to 2 or 3 schools, and then I got into 2 or 3 of them, and then Pittsburgh came at the top of his list because he felt like it would be better for me as an 18-year-old.
So when you graduated, were you still thinking about wanting to be a translator, or had that ambition changed?
No, after a year, I had forgotten about it, to be honest with you. So I started with accounting classes, and I decided to do a business degree, which was quite interesting for me. And then I was so good at accounting, then I said, okay, maybe I should be a CPA, right? So when I graduated, the plan for me was to join one of the big accounting firms at the time. I got an offer from a few of them. And then I got an offer from an insurance company as well. But I had spent 4 years of my, 18 to 22 studying so hard, and I felt to go into an accounting firm as a CPA, then I would have to pass the CPA exam, which would be a lot more studying. The insurance company was offering me a year of training while they were paying me. So that's how I ended up in insurance. I said, okay, this looks like the easier way out at the time, because to be honest, I was quite tired of studying. So that's how I started with insurance, not knowing that in the long run, it would be even more hard work than anything else that I'd imagined.
So you started out, what was your first job at the insurance company?
I was a commercial lines underwriter. And what does that mean? The first 6 months, I was pretty much opening the mail and making sure that the people that were working there were getting their mail. So I pretty much started from
Literally started from the bottom.
yeah, I'm like, I just went 4 years of university. I have a bachelor's degree and I'm opening mail. Okay, fine. So I did that for a couple of months. And then, because what they wanted to do is to make sure you understand the whole process from beginning to end, right? So when mail comes in, when claims comes in, then I was in the claims department for a while where I would receive calls for very, very angry clients asking why their payment for the car policy was not yet into their accounts. So I also started to do the customer service part quite heavily before getting into the more professional, I would say, aspect of the insurance industry.
And then you spent some time there. And then I know that 13 years ago, you walked into a job at Allianz. Is that right?
Yes. Allianz.
Allianz. I should say it right.
Yeah.
Allianz. What was that job?
At that point, so I had worked already, it was about 9 years into my career. And the reason why, first, there's something that happened before that, right? So I spent 10 years working in the US, 10 years. My son was 2 at the time. And then I felt that it was time for us to find a way back to Africa. And when you've worked so long in the US, to find the type of role that would be interesting for you in Africa, making sure that you at least maintain the same standard of living is not always easy. We were in Cincinnati at the time, and I kind of felt that it would have been hard to raise my children in that environment, right? So we decided to move to Canada. I said, let's do a stopover in Canada before we can find our way into Africa. So I pretty much packed up. I think we applied for Canadian residency, sold the house, quit my job. We packed up the kid and landed in Toronto without ever having been there. We didn't have a job. I didn't have a job. We didn't even know where to stay. So we booked a hotel online and then said, okay, this is our new Canadian adventure. We went there. It didn't take me a long time to find a job. So I had 3 offers at the time. And the reason why I chose Allianz at the time was that I said, this is likely to be my path into Africa. The other 2 companies that had made me a job offer were not really, they were very American-based or North American-based companies. Allianz was the only company at the time that was making an offer that was a global company, and they had quite a good presence in Africa. So the reason why I joined at the time was, eventually, I'm sure at some point, Africa would be on the top of the list again, and hopefully they will send me back. So that's how I joined Allianz 13 years ago in Toronto.
And what was it about why did you want to go back to Africa?
I mean, I felt that I needed to find a way to contribute back to my continent, right? My dad had spent his whole life in Africa. He got the opportunity to go and study for his master's degree in Canada and then went back because he had a scholarship from the government in Burkina at the time. I felt that there was enough people that had probably the caliber that I had in North America to continue supporting countries like that, but there's not many of me in Africa. So it's important for me to, after having spent my whole university education there and having worked there for 10, 15 years of my life, that eventually I should be able to bring back what I've learned from North America back to my home.
So you walk into Allianz 13 years ago. What was other than the vision that you wanted to go back to Africa, in terms of from a career perspective, did you have goals? Did you set yourself goals that, I want to be in this position at some point?
That's the funny part with me, that sometimes people tend to not believe when I say I tend not to have a title or a particular job in mind as far as my next step is concerned. All I wanted to do was that I wanted to come back to Africa and I wanted to contribute to the insurance industry in Africa. That's how much I knew. How I would do it, in what role I would do it, what was important for me was that I would be able to use what I've learned elsewhere and support the industry and the financial sector in general in Africa. But I really never had a particular role in mind as long as I was able to be of value. That's why I was shocked when my boss told me, my boss at the time told me what he had in plan for me. Yeah?
Why was that shocking to you?
Because I wasn't sure that I was CEO material at the time, right? I had worked in North America for, at that time, it would have been about 18 years, 10 in the US, 8 in Canada. And then when he came to my office one day and they had their plans on, what do we want to do in Africa? And then he says, what if we send you to Johannesburg and then you would run our company there and then you would be CEO of Allianz in South Africa? I thought he was kidding. So he wasn't actually, he was my boss's boss at the time. He had come, he was in Munich. He came to Toronto for a couple of days and asked to see me one-on-one and then shared that with me and then left. Right after that, I went to see my boss at the time, who was the CEO of our Canadian operation. And I said, can you believe what I was just asked? And he says, yes. And then I said, but I can't do it. He says, what do you mean you can't do it? I said, but I've never been a CEO before. I don't even know where to start. He said, sometimes people see what you are capable of before you can see it. So if he believes enough in you to think that you can do it, you better trust that you can. So all you need to do now is pack your bags when you are ready to go. You will get all the support from us, whether it's from us here in Canada, and I'm sure you will get the support from Munich as well to make it work. But if he's asking you to go, that means he's seen in you what you can do there. And that's how I ended up in Johannesburg a few months later.
And so what was the most challenging aspect for you about the move to Johannesburg?
First, I was like, okay, I've never been to Johannesburg, right? So, in the mind, it's Africa. I said, yeah, there's Africa and then there's Africa, right? We have 54 countries that are very different one from the other. I said, when I said I wanted to go to Africa, I didn't have in mind that it would be South Africa, because I was very much a West African in my mind and in culture. I didn't know much about South Africa. The only thing that I had seen about South Africa was what I'd seen in movies. And then a lot of it was not great movies, because it was movies that had a lot to do with apartheid at the time and discrimination and all that. So for me to come to South Africa, I wasn't sure what to expect. Now, to come as CEO of an organization of Allianz here was also quite a big concern for me, because I wasn't sure how I would be received by the South African market or the insurance market. I'm a Black woman and non-South African. If at least I was just a woman or a white woman coming in, then you can always find your way to fit in. And what I had heard at the time as well was that as a Black non-South African, then sometimes you have a bit of a harder time into this market. So that was a bit of my concern coming in.
And also, just to further give a little bit of context, you were the first woman CEO of any financial institution in Africa at that time. Is that correct?
In South Africa, yes. In the rest of Africa, I'm not sure. I haven't really checked.
Okay, so but for sure in South Africa. So regardless
for sure in
of
South Africa, yes, because I had the reason why I found out actually is because it was maybe about a year after I was here that I was having a conversation with the South African insurance regulator, and he's the one that pointed it out. He's like, "Do you realize that you're the only one?" But then again, it comes back to when you are doing your work, you're not really thinking so much of who is like you or not like you, right? You are just coming in and you are doing the work. And my sole purpose when I started here was that, okay, I come into a country and the company that I'm going to start running, it was small at the time and it was not very diverse at all. So how do I then build an organization that will be financially strong, sustainable, but at the same time, how do I contribute to making sure that we are hiring people that look like the rest of South Africa? Yeah, South Africa is 80% Black. It's about 8% white. It's about 8% Indian. The rest of the population is colored. So how do we also create an alliance that looks like South Africa? That was my main goal. And how do we then build a client base that will accept us the way we are, as diverse as we are? Because when we look at the rest of the financial sector, and especially the insurance industry in South Africa at the time, most of the leaders were not of color. So that was a fundamental change for us at Allianz to start building a management team that looked like the rest of the country.
So let's step back for a second and actually talk from a business perspective. What is Allianz's business? What is it that you do and that you run?
So Allianz is an insurance company and an asset management company. So overall financial giant across the world. So we do insurance for individuals, but so I like to say we insure from micro insurance, from the lady that's selling tomatoes on the side of the street, or from the farmer that is farming for his community, to ensuring large industrial projects like airports, to ensuring assets like planes. And also what we do in the asset management side is also we manage our own assets, but also assets of third parties.
So you talked about the lady on the street selling her tomatoes. Why would she even have insurance as something that enters her mind as something she needs?
It wouldn't enter her mind until you tell her that it's something that she needs to think about to make sure that she's protecting her family, right? I like to sometimes share the story of, I was in Ghana not too long ago, and I was working with one of our sales agent that was in the market trying to sell insurance. It was a life insurance product that he was trying to sell to a lady that was sharing, those plastic shoes that we tend to wear, the flip-flops, the plastic flip-flops that we tend to wear a lot in Africa. So that was her business. She was selling that. For me, it was interesting to see how he was going to be able to convince her to buy a product that people, when you say insurance, it's very complicated to everybody, let alone the lady that is all she's worried about is making sure that she makes enough money for the day to go and feed her family. So he was asking her about her and her life. How did she start her business? And she had taken a loan, or family members had given her money after her husband died, so she could at least start this small business, so she could continue maintaining her kids that she had. And the guy was asking, how much do you make a day? What is your profit for the day? And etc. So he shared that with her. And then he says, okay, so what if something happens to you today? You have 5 kids. What if something happens to you today? She says, what do you mean? She's like, what if today you die? Then who takes after your children? And the sheer shock on her face. And she says, okay, so you make, I don't know, let's put it in dollars. You make, $5 a day in profit. If you put 10 cents aside, then we would be able to provide you with X amount of money if something would happen to you today. And then that will also help sustain your family, etc. And that's how basic he explained it to her, and she agreed to buy the product. And he would come to her every month just to say, okay, this is how much you have in your account should something happen to you. He would explain it to her. He would make sure that somebody else in her family was aware that she had this product in case something happened to her. So it gave her peace of mind. Then she knew that if something happens to her today, her kids' school fees will be paid until at least they get to university. So that's the more day-to-day part of what we do.
What would you say right now are the biggest challenges that Allianz faces on the African continent and in breaking into particularly in terms of insurance?
I would say the biggest challenge is convincing people that they need insurance and then convincing them to buy the product. The protection gap in Africa is still quite large. When you look at how many people buy insurance in Africa compared to the rest of the world, it's quite minimal. We're talking about 3%, less than 3% insurance penetrations on the African continent. So financial inclusion is a big challenge for us. So first, financial literacy, so they can understand the product, they can understand what it does and how it protects them and how it gives them peace of mind, is something that is still quite difficult to explain to most of the African population. What doesn't help is that there's a lack of trust as well. Insurance policies tend to be quite long and sometimes quite complex for even the smartest lawyer to understand what is covered. So the challenge is also to make it simple enough for people to understand and then to want to buy, and then also to trust us that we will be there if there's a loss, that we will be there to deliver on the promise that we gave them when they bought the product.
Delphine, since you've taken charge, since you've been in Africa, you've achieved some significant accolades. You were named, as we said, you're the first female CEO of a financial institution, at least in South Africa. You're named one of the 50 most influential women in Francophone Africa. You were named an outstanding woman leader. You've been named Insurance CEO of the Year, and you've been named CEO of the Year by Africa Economy Builders. And something that you said in an interview was, you said, it's my duty to make sure young women have the potential to grow in the company or in the industry and get access to the right people. Why is that important to you?
It's important because it's quite lonely where I sit, right? There's a lot of women. I've been quite lucky with people around me that have always supported me. They have believed the dream before I could even believe it. And they have pushed, they have challenged me, they have given me access to their network, they have exposed me. But not many women in Africa get the same opportunity. So for me, as I said earlier, the job at Allianz is a key one. It's important that we make money so that from my perspective, I'm able to use the platform that Allianz gives me to build up more people at leadership positions across the continent, especially women, right? And it's women and it's young people. That is really where my focus is. How do we make sure that the women believe in themselves to be able to grow in their careers, to be able to have access to the network, the same access to the network that I had? And also, how do we give young people the opportunity to grow in the same manner?
Now, you sound like a great boss. I follow you on social media, and I know every now and again you share stories about some of the people who you work with. And I loved in particular the story you shared about someone who worked on your team as the person who opened the mail, brought the coffee, and you asked them the question of, what is your goal? What is your dream? And she wanted to be a secretary. Tell me about that story.
Percy. She was the tea lady when I came to South Africa. She's from Zimbabwe. She was cleaning the bathroom. She was making tea for us. And every morning, I don't know why she took on to me. Every morning, as soon as I walk into the office, she would follow me in and she would bring my tea. And usually it was just her and I, the first two people in the office. So as she come in, she would just hi. And then as she's walking out, then I would start asking her, so what, how was yesterday? What do you do? And started getting to know a bit more about her family. And then that's when one day I asked her, what do you want to do? And her face just lit up. And I said, well, the company can help you. She's like, really? But it's expensive, And then when she told me the cost, I realized, how we are Allianz. I like to say we are the largest insurance company in the world. We have a turnover of $130 billion. How can we not help this young woman in the dream that she has for herself when we put things in perspective? And at that time, I just made the call. I said, when can you start? What do you want to do? How much is it? Just go register and send us the invoice. And that's how she started. And she's always said, I wanted to make you so proud because you gave me the opportunity. So I wanted to make sure that I was working hard. She would come in early in the morning. She would start studying. Then she would go home. She would continue studying. I was in the office actually about 2 weeks ago. And then she was telling me that she's going on to another degree that she's doing now. Just, so proud of her. But it's stories like that, right? So it's from her trying to be a professional secretary to somebody wanting to lead people, to be a manager of a department, to somebody that wanted to be CEO, So it's always quite encouraging. But a great boss, I don't know. It's funny. I was just before your call now. So I was on the phone with our head of HR and our head of Mene, who both report into me, right? And then we are working on doing what we call Allianz Africa for Women. So we have, many great leading women across Africa at Allianz in all of our countries, and we've never really brought them together. So we're working together on how do we do that? How do we empower them? How do we support them, etc. And I've been traveling for the past few weeks and been having some very tough meetings. So during this conversation, I'm challenging everything that they're saying, right? And then at some point, the two of them say, when are you going on holiday? Like, what's wrong with you today? I'm like, yeah. One of those months, I need to get out of here before I kill somebody. Anyway, so there's those moments, right, where, I'm not always a very calm and sweet boss. When I start challenging, it gets, I can be quite tough.
What's been your greatest challenge in your time at Allianz?
My greatest challenge has been raising my children on my own and, trying to be a good mother and a good boss at the same time. A good mother and a good representative of the Allianz company in Africa. Balancing the two has been quite difficult. So it's like, you try to make your children proud. I have a daughter who's 12. I have a son who's 15. It's important for me that my son understands that the woman that he marries may be the woman that is a career woman that wants to work and that wants to also change life of others, and he needs to be able to support her in that. So he needs to see that example in me so that he can accept a woman that would have the same ambition as I do. But also for my daughter to realize that I always say when they say the sky's the limit, I'm like, what sky? There's no limit. So that she doesn't feel like there's a limit to what she wants to do. But at the same time, being there for them, right? Spending the time that is needed with them, but also spending the time that my team needs and that my bosses need. So having to manage that has been, I would say, the toughest part of my time at Allianz.
So you talked about the importance of motherhood and your role as a parent to your children. Tell me about the influence or the impact that your parents had on you and your life.
Oh, wow. It's interesting. Each of them have had a different impact, right? My mom was always, the one thing that I always say, so there's always something that you remember that your mother said that would have changed the dynamic or the trajectory of your life. Where she said to me one day, and to be quite blunt, she says, you don't want to be asking for a man money to go buy your tampons one day. And that was quite profound, because what she was saying was, you need to be able to be independent enough. You need a man. We all need men because that's how life is. You need a partner in your life. But at the same time, it should not be at your own detriment. You need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, whether he's there or not. Right? So that was the one thing that she always told my sisters and I. And my father, it's always been a message of humility and hard work. Right? Where he's always said, yeah, I've used that before, you are better than no one. So make sure you are humble enough in your growth, but also remember that no one is better than you, right? So don't be intimidated as you are growing in your career. Don't be intimidated by people you see, because we are all human at the end. Each of us have been given a gift, and you need to use it in the environment that you're in with the support of others. So they've had different impacts on my life.
So you talked about your father saying each of you has been given a gift. What do you think your purpose is, or have you found your purpose?
I found it now. I think I found it now. It's always been the big question. And it always says purpose, you do it with such ease and with such comfort and makes you so happy. That's how you know that it is why you're here. And I feel very strongly that my purpose is to build people up, to be there, to guide them and to bring out of them what they may have felt they didn't have in them. Whether it's through leadership, whether it's through schooling into doing, or whether it's through a business venture, then they want to go into. So I have this sense of accomplishment when I've started to speak to somebody or I've met somebody, and then a few years later, I see them blossom out of their own shell is something that is quite powerful for me. And I make it with ease. I'm very good at connecting people to other people. So, yes, people tell me, oh, you are very smart. You are good at what you do. You're a good insurer. Yes, I am a good insurer, but I am a good insurer because that helps me connect with people. And the exposure that I'm given is to show others that it's doable. And then for the people that I'm connecting with on a daily basis is to support them into doing even better than me, right? I don't think I've arrived. I still have a lot to learn and a lot to grow into. But as long as I'm able to take people with me on that journey, there's nothing more fulfilling than that.
So you talk a lot about uplifting others, helping others along the journey. What is your greatest dream for yourself?
My greatest dream for myself. You got me there. You really have. Wow. How did you do that? I'm always able to answer all the questions anybody asks me. The sad part is you just made me realize something, that you're so focused on doing for others, you don't think of yourself anymore.
It's a beautiful thing that you're so selfless. And as I said, in researching for this interview, everything that you talk about is about uplifting others, empowering others. And I'm like, what is it you want? What's most important to you? I'll let you mull that one over, and perhaps when we have our on-camera interview, you'll have time to think about it. Let me ask you this other question. What are you most proud of that you've achieved so far?
I'm proud of these little two babies that I've birthed into this world. They are growing up to be some great human beings. They are very compassionate. They are hardworking. They can be naughty, but they always listen to mama at the end of the day. So I would say those, I can only see them, 10, 15 years from now and see what their contribution will be as well to this world that we live in. So that and being able to raise them and keep them on track so far on my own it's been I think my greatest accomplishment. And other than that, it's seeing, I have my biological children, which are these two, but I also have a lot of people that, rely on me, that, look for guidance, and seeing them blossom in their own environment. I said, usually when somebody doesn't need to call me anymore, then I've done something right, you see?
And so you're an incredibly inspiring woman. Everything that you've achieved, or the accolades, or the accomplishments, and everything that you're doing to carry with you, bring with you your sisters. Who are some women that you look up to who inspire you?
Oprah is the first, of course. Who is not inspired by Oprah? Oh my goodness! So at the greater scheme, like if we look at bigger, yes, my mother, obviously, in her small way, she may not be known by the world, but when I look at what she's done with us young women, the three of us that she's raised, it's quite incredible what she's been able to do and leave in us, right? The self-confidence and the, we can do anything in a selfless manner, that she's been able to build that and then build a family that is still so close despite the fact that she's no longer here. I look at the four, so there's three of us girls plus my brother. I don't remember the last time we had a fight as adults. I really don't remember. So that is something that is quite admirable. So I will always be grateful and look up to, trying to remember how she's raised us and what she would do to the world. She had a lot of after we grew up, there's a lot of young people in the neighborhood, like the young kids that she would pay for their education. So she's been quite an incredible woman, and quite a great role model for us. So it's Oprah and my mother.
They're incredible women, for sure. Delphine, what are you afraid of?
What am I afraid of? I'm, and maybe that would sound like an odd response. I'm a Christian, right? So I pray a lot. So then for me to be afraid of something would not make sense. Am I worried sometimes? Of course. Am I afraid of something? Because I really believe that we are brought onto this world for a purpose. And because we are brought onto this world for that particular purpose, once the purpose is over, then we are gone back to where we come from. So to be afraid of anything is I don't really see it that way. Do I worry sometimes? Maybe that's a better way. Do I worry that my children will continue growing the way they are and continue succeeding in their lives? That's what worries me sometimes. But besides that, not much.
And what do you love most about yourself?
I'm funny and I'm happy and I have this way of bringing life in an environment that I'm in. I think that I like that about myself.
I've obviously never met you in person, but that was certainly the vibe that I got from you, was that you have this energy and a lightheartedness and a fun. And so it definitely comes across as well that way.
Yeah, that I like that about it. And I do it with such ease. I'm rarely intimidated by anyone, which is what surprises a lot of people. And maybe that's what also has helped me in my career, because when you are intimidated by somebody that might be able to help you, then you cannot connect with them anymore, right? Because you see them as superior and you as less than. But I've had that comment before from people where it doesn't matter who the person is. At the end of the day, they're a person just like the rest of us, right? So I would say rarely get intimidated by by people. So,
And what are you most grateful for right now?
I'm most grateful for this chat that I'm having with you right now. I'm grateful that I'm alive today to be able to do my own contribution. I'm grateful that I'm healthy, that my children are healthy. I'm grateful that my mother was able to see some of what I've been able to do before she passes on. I can go on and on about what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my career. I'm grateful for my friends. Yeah.
So what's next? I know in the very, very short term, it's your vacation that all you have standing between you and your vacation is me and my
Is you.
questions, which is we're near the end. You'll be happy to know. But what's next for you? What's your plan for the future? What are some big goals that you have?
I would say, I only scratched a little bit of the surface right now. My goal in the long run would be to support and contribute in a much larger scale into the leadership development of our continent, to the young people becoming leaders in our African companies or international companies in Africa, to women running large companies in Africa, starting their own businesses, etc. Right now, I've been able to contribute in my very small way, I think, from an Allianz perspective, because the company has given me the platform. But I'm hoping that the platform gets bigger and I can do more. I don't think I've done enough yet. I really don't. So sometimes I get quite uneasy with a lot of the, awards and recognition, because I'm like, I don't think I've done enough yet sometimes to deserve it,
Delphine, you talked about your 2 biological children, but you also talked about your extended family of children that you're mentoring, that you're helping to support on their journeys of aspiration. And I'm interested to know, if you had to give one piece of advice that you'd want your children to remember, what would it be?
That there's no limit, right? We always say the sky's the limit. There's no limit. Don't limit yourself. You are as powerful as anyone around you is. You are not weaker. You are not less than anyone. So you have in you, if you were given the dream, then you can accomplish it. You just have to keep pushing for it. But it's important also to surround yourself with people that are going to challenge you, that are going to support you, but are also going to challenge you. And stay the course. It's important to stay the course.
Okay, we're going to switch gears really quick, and we're going to do something that we call the Quickfire round. It should take no more than about a minute, and I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to say the first thing that comes to mind. You're not allowed to think about it, no contemplating, just the first thing that comes to mind, okay?
Okay.
All right. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Fun, loud, and happy.
When you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to mind?
My dad.
What's your favorite book?
A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
I love that book. So beautiful.
Yeah, I know it.
Favorite gift to give?
Favorite gift to give? There's so many.
Last gift you gave?
Last gift I gave was a bottle of wine. Very good South African wine.
Favorite gift to receive?
Jewelry.
What do you love about the place you live?
Oh, it's peaceful. I love the garden. I love nature.
Now, we talked at the very beginning about how stylish you are. Tell me, what's your favorite item of clothing?
It's a skirt and top, like a tailored suit with an African print, with the skirt that come like all the way to your ankles, and then a very tailored top, and then a duke. So it's a suit, African suit with a duke.
What's your favorite time of day and why?
Morning, because it's quiet and I can hear the birds singing.
If you could have dinner with 2 people, who would they be and why?
Oprah Winfrey, so I can get everything out of her head, her wisdom out of her head, and Nelson Mandela. I want to know how he forgave after 27 years. How do you go on living?
What's your favorite meal or thing to eat?
Acheke with fish. Do you know what it is?
No, what is acheke?
Acheke is a very Ivorian dish. It's made with cassava. It looks like a couscous. It's like a cassava couscous. Yeah.
And it has to be with
usually
fish. I like how you said that. It was specific, with fish.
it has to be with fish. Without fish, it doesn't make sense. So it's with fish and onions and tomatoes, and then you eat it with your hands. Yeah.
Okay, so when I come visit someday, that's what you'll make for me, right?
Exactly.
What can't you get through the day without?
My labello, my lipstick, it's not a lipstick, but it's a lip gloss, a lip thingy. But there's one in particular that I like, and I can only find it in the US. So when I go to the US, I buy like 10 of them. It's like a cocoa butter lipstick thing. I can't find it anywhere else. So my kids were telling me today, they're like, okay, so when we go there, so this day we're going to do this, and next day you're going to go and buy, I don't know, maybe 20 kilos of your cocoa butter thing.
They already know. What's the screensaver on your phone or on your computer?
On both, it's nature. My last safari. I took a picture of lions and giraffes. So that's what I keep.
What's your favorite app?
Instagram. But that was as of like about a month ago. So it switches. Right now it's Instagram.
What was it before?
It was Facebook. But my kids told me I'm too old. I shouldn't, Facebook is for old people. So I try to be cool now.
What of all the places, now you have traveled a lot, you've lived in a lot of very interesting places. What's your favorite place you've ever visited?
Visited, I would say Asia. It was Phuket in Thailand.
And why was that? What did you love about it?
I'm a beach peace girl. I like the beach and I like quiet and I like to, and there's nothing more powerful than the sound of the ocean. That's when you realize that we are just small human beings in this world. We think we've arrived, but there's things that are much, much more powerful than who we are. And then in an environment like this, I feel so small that it's soothing. I don't have to do anything.
If you had to pick a theme song for your life, what would it be?
Survivor by Beyonce and Destiny's Child.
What's your worst habit?
My worst habit is watching too much TV, I think. I watch, and it's very stupid TV. My daughter will tell you, she's like, she's like, I wonder what your boss would say if they knew you were watching The Housewives of Atlanta.
Do you know, I have to say, I love The Housewives of Atlanta.
She's like, you are COO, like you make big decisions and buy companies, and you are watching The Housewives of Atlanta and you're watching Phaedra going crazy? Are you serious? I'm like, yeah, but it helps my brain.
That's what I tell my husband, because he's put a ban on any housewives in our house, but I'm like, but it helps my brain. What do you wish you had more of in your life?
Time.
And what is a question you wish people would ask you, or that you wish I had asked you today?
How are you feeling today?
Gosh, how are you feeling today, Delphine?
I'm ready to go on holiday.
And that was my cue to end the interview. Where can people find you on social media, Delphine?
I'm on Instagram, my new favorite app. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, and I am on LinkedIn.
And one final question. This platform is called Ndini, which in my mother tongue means I am. Please finish that sentence for me. I am.
I am grateful.
Delphine, I am grateful. I am so grateful that you made time for me. I'm so grateful that we could make this happen before you sneak away on your vacation. I wish you an incredible vacation, and I hope someday soon to meet you in person.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ndini podcast. I don't take even a single listener for granted. As you know, my goal with this platform is to help shift and change the narrative on Africa, and in particular about African women. But I need your help to do that. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher. You can also follow us on Soundcloud. And please share. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. It helps me to bring great guests to the show, and it also helps others discover the podcast. And of course, I always want to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my conversation with our guest today and what you took away from it or what inspired you. I'd also love to hear from you if you have suggestions for other women you think I should absolutely have on the show. Our handle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is @Ndini Media. Or you can reach out to me through our website, which is ndini.com. That's NDINI.com. Until next time, I'm Sandra Chuma. Be well.